dicono gli antropologi, l'agency dei dominati nel contesto di egemonia imposta dall'espansione imperialistica dell'Occidente. Tuttavia, questa produzione resta totalmente marginale nei paesi stessi in cui il genere si è sviluppato. Penso all'India. E la sua diffusione assoluta e quindi incidenza relativa è trascurabile in quei settori di borghesia indiana e pakistana che includano centinaia di milioni di membri e che sono peraltro largamente anglofoni. Sembra che i post-colonial studies non dicano molto alle varianti di modernità del subcontinente indiano, ma anche del Sudafrica, del Medio Oriente e di altre parti del mondo. Sicuramente non dicono niente all'Africa occidentale e in genere all'Africa. Probabilmente ciò avviene perché nel loro dar voce ai dominati che ne erano stati privati nel quadro dell'itinerario verso la modernità, i post-colonial studies non mettono comunque in discussione la lettura di quell'itinerario stesso che è come predeterminato, unidirezionale in termini di sbocchi e obiettivi del cambiamento. I post-colonial studies accettano la teleologia della modernità, che è intrinseca a un'egemonia fondata sul primato di una razionalità che è quella espressa dall'Occidente nei 3 secoli passati e che conseguita a porsi con una presunzione di universalità. Questo fa sì che non esercitino molta attrazione su versioni di modernità in cui si muovono sezioni numericamente imponenti dell'umanità odierna e che non condividono diversi elementi o addirittura presupposti sostanziali di quella razionalità. Pensiamo, per fare un esempio, a tutto il dibattito sul secolarismo e come influisce sul rapporto odierno con l'Islam, col cristianesimo e con le religioni in generale. Semplificherei così. In base alla posizione oggi dominante in Occidente sussiste una disgiunzione implicita fra il pensare razionale e il credere. Il credere, specialmente quello religioso, ma non solo, è prevalentemente concepito come una dimensione privata e di fede e quindi, logica conseguenza, il credere attiene il dominio dell'irrazionale e la fede non può essere oggetto di pensiero razionale. Ma gli strumenti e le categorie delle scienze sociali come le conosciamo oggi sono veramente utili per analizzare forme di modernità in cui non sussiste tale disgiunzione implicita fra il pensare razionale e il credere? Pongo questo problema. C'è un importante africanista, scienziato politico, storico, che è morto meno di 2 anni fa, Patrick Chabal, che ha sviluppato sostanzialmente queste considerazioni, altre considerazioni come questa, nel suo ultimo libro che è intitolato The End of Conceit, dove la presunzione, conceit, è appunto quella di universalità della razionalità occidentale. Chabal pone in maniera molto precisa il problema dell'inadeguatezza delle scienze sociali come strumenti analitici per comprendere e per interpretare gli avvenimenti del nostro tempo, tanto all'interno delle nostre società che sono cambiate. Pensiamo al solito fenomeno dell'immigrazione, dove nelle nostre società il non occidente ormai è diventato parte essenziale del quadro. E come in genere a livello mondiale, a livello internazionale mondiale. Le scienze sociali, secondo Chabal, sarebbero ormai storicamente inadeguate perché troppo contestuali al quadro in cui sono nate, ossia come strumenti elaborati dalle società europee fra fine Ottocento e primo Novecento, per tentare di interpretare il proprio cambiamento, la propria modernità. Potremmo aggiungere noi sulla base di un'egemonia materiale sul mondo che allora si stabiliva in maniera apparentemente granitica con il completamento dell'espansione coloniale. Fra l'altro Chabal aggiunge anche che secondo lui le scienze sociali sono ormai concettualmente fuori uso nella loro presunzione di perseguire una dimensione di scientificità mutuata per imitazione dalle scienze dure. La sua conclusione è che di fronte alle sfide radicali della razionalità dell'Occidente nella sua versione odierna, rappresentate da razionalità più vicine alla storia e alla cultura delle società non occidentali, quindi fra l'altro non più assoggettate a un sistema organico di dominio, è quindi necessario un ripensamento di sostanza della razionalità occidentale. il velleitarismo di uno scienziato politico, forse, non lo so, chissà. Tuttavia il problema che pone è un problema reale, che io come africanista non posso che in qualche modo condividere nella sua problematicità. Ci sono pochi dubbi che per lo storico dell'Africa inadeguatezze strumentali come quelle indicate da Chabal sono di evidenza palmare, col rischio di condannare all'irrilevanza oggettiva molti sforzi analitici e molta ricerca. E per certi aspetti qualche tentativo di soluzione è stato perseguito nei lustri recenti. Comunque. Potrei concludere dicendo che, sempre come storico africanista, mi auguro che la nostra classe di studi africani faccia propria in maniera convinta l'esortazione che è rivolta dal noto filosofo camerunese Achille Mbembe agli studiosi di Africa e agli orientalisti, ossia a fare in modo, cito, che il discorso africanistico non si risolva nel puro uso dell'Africa come campo sperimentale o come mero raffronto teorico e occasione per parlare di qualcos'altro. Parliamo di Africa. Il contributo di Gianfranco e mio questo Dies è stato quello di sostenere un programma per questi 3 giorni che cercasse di muovere effettivamente in questa direzione. Ora, prima di procedere con i nostri lavori, voglio ringraziare coloro che hanno contribuito fattivamente alla realizzazione del Dies, in particolare Pierfrancesco Fumagalli, Paolo Nicelli, Elena Fontana e Agostino Soldati. Oltre ai miei colleghi accademici, specialmente Alessandro Bausi, Vermondo Brugnatelli e Alberto Camplani, e poi tutti voi che siete intervenuti a questa occasione. Grazie. Alice prende la presidenza del tutto e introdurrà e condurrà la discussione del nostro primo panel, che è quello su cambiamento religioso e itinerari di emancipazione personale, a cui partecipano Sandra Elaine Green della Cornell University, Giulio Cipollone della Pontificia Università Gregoriana e Giampaolo Calchinovati dell'ISPI di Milano. Grazie.
Buongiorno e benvenuti. Prima di dare la parola alla collega Sandra Green, volevo chiedervi se poi c'è bisogno che alla fine della sua presentazione, che sarà in inglese, io faccia magari un breve riassunto per lanciare la discussione, oppure andiamo tranquillamente con varie lingue. Allora, lascio la parola a Sandra Green, che ci parlerà di Faith, Finances and Christian Slave Emancipation in 19th Century West Africa. That's up to you now.
Thank you for the introduction, and I'd like to also thank the Ambrosiana Academy for organizing this symposium and including Africa in its larger set of interests. I would also like to dedicate this particular talk to the late J.D.Y. Peele, who is a major scholar of religion in Africa, and I make quite a few references to his work. He died just 2 weeks ago. Okay. So I'd like to begin with a question that has preoccupied generations of scholars who study religious change. Why do individuals, and at times entire communities, convert from one religion to another? A religion different from the one in which they were raised, a religion that is foreign to the community in which they live, a religion that, on the face of it, seems fundamentally different in how it understands the world. This question has intrigued and been explored by generations of scholars, whether they focus on societies in Africa, Asia, Europe, or the Americas. Among scholars of the African past, the question of why people converted has been most often posed when individuals shifted from belief in a polytheistic religious system to a monotheistic one. In his many studies on African religions, the late J.D.Y. Peele emphasized the notion that new belief systems could become quite attractive when individuals and communities experienced significant upheavals that defied explanation according to pre-existing beliefs. These upheavals, whether in the form of warfare, natural disasters, or personal crises, were then compounded by other disruptions like colonial rule. According to Peel, it was these conditions that created a favorable climate for conversion to Christianity and Islam in Africa. Once these conditions existed, other factors came into play. Did the new religion meet, as Peel described it, a criterion of truth and meaning? In other words, did it offer greater explanatory power as individuals and communities sought to understand and exercise some control or influence over the world in which they lived? Did the new religion also meet a criterion of utility? In other words, did it offer material attractions, such as education and political or economic advantage? In addition, did the carriers of the world religions have the capacity to influence potential converts? Did community leaders help or hinder the carriers of that new religion? And how much freedom of action did different sectors of the population have in choosing to convert or not? Peel convincingly argued that if one were able to answer these questions, it would be possible to explain why individuals and communities converted to a religion different from the one to which they were previously attached. A second question has preoccupied scholars of African history and African religious change, and that question has to do with how conversion influences the way converts view the world and interact with others. This too has received considerable attention. Studies by historians and religious scholars of Africa have documented in extensive detail the ways in which conversion to Islam and Christianity in all their various forms, for example, have influenced social and economic networks, sartorial choices, artistic practices and performances, politics, gender relations, ritual behavior, and legal regimes. Today, I would like to address these same questions, but I focus not on an entire community or ethnic group, but rather on a single individual, a man by the name of Noah Yawo from southeastern Ghana, who converted in 1873 from a polytheistic belief system to Christianity. In this paper, I suggest why he converted, but more importantly, I explore how he chose to combine his new faith with his status as a respected and wealthy slave owner. At the time he became Christian, the missionary society with which he was associated did not demand that he give freedom to those whom he had purchased or obtained as debt pawns. And his precarious economic situation would have suggested that he should have been very resistant to the idea, even if he had been required to give up his slaves. Nevertheless, he did free them, and he did so at a time when most Christian owners refused to do so, even if they were economically secure. Slaveholding was not just an economic institution. It was a symbol of social status and a basis for political power. So the question is, why would someone like Noah Yawo give up his slaves at a time when very few other people, particularly Christians, were prepared to do so? In examining the life of this one individual, missionary sources are critical for studying slavery in Africa. Their writings on this subject span from the 17th to the early 20th century, and they contain unprecedented and detailed portraits of individuals and communities. Only from these sources can one gain intimate entry into the inner thoughts and concerns of new converts as they struggle to combine their new faith with older, more familiar ways of operating in the world. From missionary sources on Africa, one can gain important insights into how individuals attempted to navigate the challenges of living both an economically secure life and one that was governed by the ethical and religious concerns of their new faith. The challenge of reconciling faith and financial and other material concerns has been especially present when Christians had to grapple with how they would deal with the institution of slavery. In the 17th century, when virtually no one questioned the ethics of enslaving others, especially if they were of a different religion. A few Jesuit and Capuchin missionaries operating in the 17th century Congo strongly objected to the way in which the slave trade operated in the Congo. They insisted that it was a massive violation of basic human rights that should not be countenanced by the Catholic Church because it violated the tenets of Catholic charity. Interestingly, their objections were accepted by the Roman Curia, which then promulgated a set of formidable and rigorous condemnations covering a whole range of abuses. But as Richard Gray has documented, those involved in managing the enforcement of the Curia's guidelines, the nuncios in Rome and Madrid, as well as various clerics and laity, countered and effectively nullified any efforts at change by arguing for America's great need for Negroes, whether for cultivating the land or for working the mines. West African Protestant missionaries who worked to spread Christianity in Africa in the 19th century lived in a very different era. By this time, Protestants and Catholics alike had long condemned the practice of slavery. But these 19th century West African Christians, many of whom were slave owners themselves, had as much difficulty abandoning the institution of slavery as had their 17th century European counterparts. These historical realities make the question of why someone like Noah Yawo was willing to give up his slaves even more intriguing. Why did he free his slaves when so many others found it difficult or simply refused to do so, whether in the 17th century or in the 19th century? So let me continue by providing a bit of information about Noah Yawo. What we know of him comes from the records of the Protestant Missionary Society, the Norddeutsche Missionsgesellschaft, which I shall call for convenience the Bremen Mission. It was this missionary society that evangelized Noah's community of Ho, located in what is now southeastern Ghana, and it was the African converts associated with the Bremen Mission who converted Noah to Christianity. The conditions that created a favorable climate for his conversion involved a series of disasters that befell him and his community, disasters that defied easy explanation. In 1862, an earthquake shook the entire region, an event that had never been experienced in the memories of the people living in southeastern Ghana. The shock and fear was so great that entirely new prohibitions were imposed in an effort to appease what they thought was the wrath of a god, displeased with Yawo's community. In that same year, in 1862, drought hit the area. Some areas were so badly affected that they began to experience famine. 3 years later, in 1865, smallpox struck Ho. And despite the efforts of local priests to appease the deity that was associated with using this disease to demonstrate its power, despite the people's efforts to clean their towns and quarantine the sick, many died. Yet throughout this period, many remained faithful to their indigenous religion. Drought was not uncommon. Smallpox was also not that uncommon. Only the earthquake raised doubts in the minds of some. But these were just doubts, questions. But then came war. In 1869, the area experienced a massive military invasion. Driven from their homes, they were forced to flee and relocate in the face of an advancing army at least 20 times over a span of 6 months. Hunger was ever present as they carried only what they could grab, quickly before escaping time and again. In towns where they found temporary refuge, the people of Ho found themselves taken advantage of, forced to pay higher prices for food than what was paid by others, fined for every minor and imagined infraction. On returning home at the end of the war in 1870, they found their homes thoroughly looted, with no means to quickly rebuild their lives. Then in 1872, Yawo's older brother died after a long illness. For Yawo, this was a particularly hard blow, for despite the fiscally difficult times, he had not withheld any money as he went from one local doctor or local priest to another seeking treatment for his brothers, but none were helpful. This is when the nagging doubts, the questions about the old religion that had been lingering in the background, came to the fore for Noah. He remembered when the earthquake struck. The polytheistic priests could offer no other explanation but that the presence of the Christian missionaries had made the local gods angry. The priests then demanded that the Europeans provide material goods for themselves, and then they would appease the gods. But it was the European missionaries who had been preaching long before the earthquake that such an event would occur, primarily because of their sins. They were so convincing, in fact, that Noah's community began prohibiting people from farming on Sunday in recognition of the power of the Christian God. When illnesses defied local cures, it was the missionaries who offered alternative remedies. When the war was raging and so many were kidnapped and enslaved by the enemy, the only escapee known to Yahweh was the child of one of the Christian converts who had refused to wear the traditional amulets all polytheistic believers wore in times of military conflict. So it was Yahweh's observation of and experience with these events that made him believe, according to the tenets of his older faith, that the God of the Europeans was indeed more powerful than the local deities. And as he studied the new religion, he came to believe in it, and he converted to Christianity. For Noah, this new faith had come to meet the criterion of truth and meaning. It offered convincing explanations about the world and how it operated and how to operate in it, but it also offered material benefits. European missionaries introduced new technologies, carpentry, new ideas about farming, as well as different educational opportunities that provided him and others in the community with new economic opportunities. The new religion received a welcome reception from the leaders